One story is about the elderly man who, the only black family in Hood River, Ed and Charlene Harris, came to Dad and Mom and said, "Our cousin is coming out of the penitentiary and he doesn't have any place to live. Could you let him live in that little cabin you have there?" And they told Mom and Dad that he was getting old and they thought he was quite harmless, but he was in the penitentiary for murder. Or maybe he told them after he got there. I don't remember which it was, but he told me the story one day, and he said that his father was being disrespected by a man, and the man kept uh, hitting him on the top of the head. And one of the things I learned in the Job Corps days, when there was a civil rights awareness sweeping the country with Martin Luther King and uh, Malcolm X and others, was that you don't touch the top of the head of a young black man in a casual, disrespectful way. It's a very big offense. So this guy was touching his dad on the top of the head, and uh, and Pete Harris said, "Stop that! If you don't stop that, I'm going to steal you, like the metal steel." And the guy did it again, and Pete said, "I stealed him." Now, much later, when Dad had some contact with Pete Harris's parole officer, he had a little different story about why Pete was in the penitentiary, and it wasn't about having killed somebody, it was about burglary. But that story really stuck with me, that with all the despair and degradation that black people suffered under slavery and that traveled on through Jim Crow and is still among us today with encounters with some police officers, the black people became very, very protective of themselves about being insulted. Uh, so it also goes that I've read in college that the Jewish people that survived the Holocaust reported that when the SS would uh, strike them and knock them down or slap them in the face with a glove, that was that was more emotionally destructive than getting knocked down with a butt of a rifle. Uh, Overt, powerful disrespect and disgrace is extremely powerful with people. And I learned that from Pete Harris. Don't do that again or I'll steal you. Another related story, when I first learned about reverse discrimination, the last of the chief of the Hood River Indians was a man named Tommy Thompson. And he had a horse and a little wagon and a wife. And I was hiking up a hill one day when I was probably 10 or 12, going on a squirrel hunting outing. And as I was walking up the hill, it was hot and I was beginning to perspire. And here came Chief Tommy Thompson with his horse and his wagon and his wife. And I had met him before. I don't remember exactly where or how, but it had been pleasant. And I respected him, and he knew that. But as he pulled next to me, I said, "Would you give me a ride?" And he looked down off that wagon and he says, "White boy, walk," and rode on by. And I thought about that. And, you know, we could run them off their land. We could kill their buffaloes. We could put them in what do they call those concentration? Reservations. But by God, a 10-year-old boy couldn't tell an Indian chief that he had to give him a ride. And as I thought about that over the years, I've come to more and more respect that interaction. White boy, walk. Another early story. I was walking home one day from town, which is only a mile, and I was 2/3 of the way home when a car stops by me, and it's Charlene and Ed Harris, the only black couple in town, and they were operating an orchard for a man who was wealthy and had come out from the east and lorded his way around the rest of his life there. And he had this small orchard. I think he had a lot of inherited money. Didn't really need the money from the orchard, but he had the orchard, and he got Ed and Charlene to operate it for him, and they lived in a dilapidated, disgraceful house. And he always told him, well, I'm not going to pay you very much, but I'll put your son through college. I'll pay for your son's college education. Well, about the time his son was ready to go to college, Martin Luther King was getting to be in his heyday. And then Mr. Peters went down to the Elks Club and announced to his buddies down there, well, the nigs are getting uppity. I'm not going to pay for him to go to college. So there's some happy side of this story. As much as I don't like banks, let's hear it for the U.S. National Bank. They had a program where you could work part-time and go to school part-time, and they would help you get through college, which they did. And he then had a successful professional career. And he's still sending me pictures of where he is on Facebook. Ed Harris, good friend of my brother's and mine. But his parents wanted to give me a ride home. And I said, well, I'm all right. I'll walk on home myself. No, get in the car. Get in the car! Not quite that harsh, but almost. So I thought, well, I guess I better get in the car, because I knew they liked me and knew my family was on their side, so I wasn't afraid of them. But I get in the car, and they were tight. They were what sometimes we used to call 3 sheets to the wind. And they wanted to give this white boy a little education. So they says, those guys down at the Elks Club, a lot of businessmen and orchardists and so forth go to the Elks Club and drink a lot. Some of them are alcoholics, and they go there and they drink and they hang out. And so they're telling me, those people that go down there to the Elks Club, they all shit in the same hole. And they figured everything out about how they can take advantage of us black people and working people. They all shit in the same hole. And I was having a little trouble understanding that, but the emotion behind it struck with me. These people knew that they were oppressed, and they didn't like it. And they wanted this white boy to know there is oppression in this world, and you, white boy, need to learn about it. And I did. I did. Thank you, Ed and Carlene. I later wrote her will after he died, and I'm still to this day friends with their son, who used to go camping on the Minam with my brother and my parents. But they broke through my innocence about oppression, and they did it in a very clear, well-stated way. I think those were the stories I wanted to tell about early training about race.